I love Jack Kerouac and beat writers and stuff, but the disservice they did was the same thing that Picasso did to art. Just real briefly, this is relevant to writing. Picasso came out around the time of photography, when photography started getting big. What happened was art before then had been a real craftsman's job, and there was a lot of realism going on. The Victorian age was very realistic. Photography put a dent in that, and those skills of being as realistic as possible as a painter no longer became valuable because of photography. And that is certainly what Picasso used. He was a very accomplished artist, but he went off in another direction using, not the excuse, but using the impetus of photography taking care of realism for him to go off in another direction. Plus there's all this Dadaism and all this stuff going on at the same time. And that's great. That kind of revolution is great. And that's what the Beats were doing in the 50s with writing and things like that. The problem is in the following generation in art, people started with Picasso's abstract art as a base, thinking they didn't need to know anything about how to paint, anything about the craftsmanship. There's a very famous quote that I had written above my desk for a very long time when I started in my career as a freelancer. And the quote was, "First be a craftsman. You got plenty of time to be a genius later." Okay? And what that refers to is learn the craft. And that's where Elements of Style comes back in. Because the painters that started with the idea that I don't need to learn the craft because all I need to do is paint like Picasso and I'm going to be a great artist too. I collect art, I collect local art, and I like people with craft. And that's what I look for first, is that sense of craft. If it's ceramics, it's understanding the process of the kiln and that. And that's very different than the people who essentially never get better than they are as a sophomore in art school, when they're just throwing stuff together and trying stuff. And a lot of people think everything they do is going to be fine. So when you get into advertising and marketing and you get into this writing, it's a shock to a lot of people when you say you've got to learn to write. There are some basics to writing. There is a way to write that has been time tested, and that's where Elements of Style comes in. It's a little dated, yes, but it's dated only in that it was written a long time ago, in the 20s, and it influenced guys like Steinbeck, who knew how to write concisely, succinctly, and paid attention to the writing. A lot of writing that's out there, including a lot of stuff in newspapers. Just pick up a newspaper and start counting the that's in a story. And this is obvious that people are now teaching people how to write, and the teachers don't know how to write. So the corruption is endemic. And of course, as all marketers know, this is your in. This is great news for anybody who knows what everybody else doesn't know, because you can now become that clear, concise writer. It can actually be a USP in your market for you to be the one guy who can clearly say what everybody else is mumbling about. Okay? So that's why this is so important. That's why you guys intuitively knew to follow a writer. Me, I'm sure a lot of you have been dealing with Dan Kennedy, certainly Gary Halbert and other guys like that. There's a reason why top writers tend to start talking about this stuff, because we're obviously very passionate about it, and there's a reason for it. And communication is the basis of society. Without it, the whole world is one big Tower of Babel. It's very important to not turn your nose up at this.